Well, it was recently announced that the PlayStation 5 would get a console exclusive version of KOTOR Remake. So I thought it would be fun to sort of maybe do a dramatization, quote unquote, of what that's going to be like, especially at launch. And even though we have footage of KOTOR in what is essentially 4K 60 frames, I thought it'd be a fun little video to make. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. And just remember, it's just jokes, and obviously for content purposes, this is just for fun, right? Like, let's not get too far with this. But let's get started and see what could potentially look like KOTOR on the PlayStation 5. And what we see is some beautiful looking scenery. And I mean, the game actually wasn't a bad looking game back in the day. Come to think of it, it was one of the main reasons that I really started playing the original Xbox as long as I did. And fun fact for me personally, when it comes to KOTOR, I actually played this game every year since it released, all the way until I think maybe 2014, something along those lines. I just loved the game so much. And then by that time, unfortunately, it just became really kind of outdated with the aspect ratio and things like that, and you don't get any achievements from it. So the game is that good, though. It's certainly good, and obviously on the PlayStation 5 it's going to look absolutely incredible, to say the least. And listen, nobody's more excited for this game than I am. And actually, the funniest thing about this is all the big announcements and stuff that we saw from Sony's big showcase, the one that really um, goes out there and kind of makes it interesting is this KOTOR announcement. Like, people didn't, I mean, they really were excited for Wolverine and Spider-Man 2 and that kind of stuff, but the one that really kind of got everybody interested in, what's coming is obviously KOTOR Remake, and that was what really kind of got fans pissed off the most. So I find that to be incredibly funny, to say the least. But yeah, very interesting. And now if you take a look at the what's going to be the Xbox version here, yeah, you can see that it's definitely not something that is going to be comparable. I mean, you could just see that for some reason they didn't really nail the graphical settings and things like that. It looks a little dark, looks a little bit one of those games that's going to be, you got to turn the contrast all the way up, otherwise you might not even get to play it. In fact, you might be better off just looking at a picture of Phil Spencer. I mean, that could, I know Xbox fans kind of like that kind of stuff. So, maybe the game will come to Xbox in a year or two. But until that point, you can just look at Phil Spencer's pictures and be like, hey, Phil, how's it going? You smell great. Hopefully you can get us some exclusive games sometime. It was really kind of cool that you let Sony get a hold of a game that used to be Xbox exclusive and make it exclusive on PlayStation, so that your fans can't play it. Thanks for doing that, Phil. So yeah, very interesting to say the least. And again, I just feel like, Xbox fans kind of get left out in the cold. And for me personally, I feel like that's a little bit of a slap in the face, because I have seen so many people request KOTOR or KOTOR Remake or Jade Empire Remake. This is just really a very interesting situation, to say the least. And again, I find it to be a little bit funny that people sort of took it as far as they did. That they're like, time, like, listen, if you're a fan of a game, buy the game. Like, I don't really have anything else to say about it, but like, get the system that the game's out on and just do it that way. And then if you kind of look at what Sony's doing with something like KOTOR or something, along these lines, I think that that's going to be more along the lines of what people are excited for in the future. These type of games always sit there and attract a large contingent of gamers and stuff like that. So it's very fascinating to see how people react to these things. I have no doubt that KOTOR, it's a full remake. I know some people were kind of looking at Aspire and seeing what they've done and go, oh, you know what? This is really unfortunate, because Aspire, they ported some Star Wars games to current gen consoles, and they turned out, to score pretty poorly. But again, you look at it, it's just a port you know, instead of a complete remake, which this is going to be a complete remake with new voice acting and everything. So I think that's really something that's going to be incredible to see. And you know what? I do think people should kind of take that to heart as well. You know, again, this is something that fans have been asking for a long time. You know what I never understood was developers get asked for games all the time, right? It's like, as far back as I can remember, fans have wanted a KOTOR 3. They wanted remakes of KOTOR. They wanted a Jade Empire 2. I get that maybe the original Jade Empire or whatever came out at a different time, a different day and age or whatever, but I still think that it's, you know, a little bit interesting that developers just kind of pass up free money. And we've seen this happen, right? Like, nostalgia hits really hard. Look at the Crash Bandicoot collection. I think that did like, what, 10 million on PlayStation 4 alone, not to mention what it did elsewhere. But nostalgia really does push people into, you know, picking up things like a, you know, a console or whatever. And I feel like that's something that really kind of makes a lot of sense in general, to kind of get people back on board with what you're doing. So hopefully that's something that happens sooner rather than later, because I love seeing stuff like KOTOR come back. And I know people go, well, it's an old game. But again, if you're into game preservation the way that I am, you want to see stuff like this, because looking back at the old one, like I said, no trophy support, no achievement support. The aspect ratio is bad. You know, it's just not the same thing as getting something new and improved. So I'm always up for that. Just like with the Mass Effect trilogy, right? Like, I was incredibly happy to see the Mass Effect trilogy come about the way that it did, because it helps preserve the games and it looks great. It has trophy support, has the support of you know, of HD graphics. They fixed up some of the gameplay that was really kind of a pain to go through. So yeah, I absolutely love what they were able to accomplish with that. It makes me happy, and I know a lot of you guys are happy too. I can't wait to see some stuff from this KOTOR game. I think that it's been a pretty incredible situation, to say the least. You know, because again, fans are always going to kind of look at things like one way or the other, and I think that what they were able to kind of accomplish with being able to actually remake a KOTOR game is pretty impressive. You know, finally listen to fans. I know it's probably still at least a couple of years away, but it's still important to note that, you know, it's coming and that fans are going to have that to look forward to. And if it's supported, we might see a sequel. We might see a remake of the second one, which was never finished to begin with, right? So that's a funny story as well. Like, I know some of you might not know the story about this, but BioWare didn't actually do KOTOR 2. Obsidian did, but but LucasArts wanted the game out in time for like the holidays, and so they had to cut a bunch of stuff, and so it was really unfortunate that, you know, that game was kind of left unfinished. You know, but again, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Hopefully you guys understand where I'm coming from this, because again, it's all very interesting stuff, and for me personally, I love talking about it because I'm very passionate, especially about a game like this, which, man, just really brings back really good memories. So anyway, this is all just a joke, by the way. This is actually footage on my Xbox Series X from KOTOR via backwards compatibility. I think it's like 4K 60, but it's still in a bad aspect ratio. But it is going to be funny to see some of the meltdowns on, you know, when KOTOR actually does release on PlayStation 5. Let me know what you guys think. Rack 'em up, fact 'em up, Crapgamer 'em up. Hit the like button if you enjoyed some of these jokes. Thanks for watching. Crapgamer out.